let's get started. We are going to now look at another way of identifying features of a scatter plot. All right, so scatter plots, if you've watched any of the other videos on scatter plots, we went over how to make them, and we've also gone over like when they have relationships, like what we call those types of relationships. Well, this is kind of a similar thing in this, and what we have is we have some situations that show up with scatter plots, and we had to be able to figure out like how to name them. And so if you think about some of the names we use, they're very logically based. They're nothing weird. So the two terms we're going to introduce you to are clustering and outliers. So if you think of what a cluster is when a bunch of things kind of bunch together. When a number of points sit and they decide to kind of clump together in a cluster, right? So if you look at figure 1, you can clearly see that there is a relationship, but they're not really bunched together. It's kind of just sort of going up as you go from left to right, right? X increases and so does Y. Figure 2, however, shows a classic example of what clustering is, right? You've got a pile of points right here. You've got another pile of points right here, and you've got a pile of points right here. So you're looking at any situation where there's a concentration in a small area of points. We're going to give it a technical term, right? And that's called a cluster. All right. Now the other term we're going to talk about is a term called an outlier. Now an outlier is any kind of term that when you have what looks to be a pretty solid relationship with the other points, and then you'll have one or two points that don't quite fit that distribution. So like if you look at figure 1, everything kind of falls into place, right? There's nothing really outside of that. Figure 2, it's the same thing. You've got your 3 little clusters. So you got your 3 groups, and there's really nothing outside of that. Figure 3 looks pretty good, except if you look here, you've got one point right here that's sort of off doing like its own thing. Right? So that is what we call an outlier. It lies outside the rest of the data. Okay? And figure 4 shows 2 examples of outliers. Most of your data appears to kind of be trending sort of straight across, more or less, around where y is equal to 6, right? But you've got this point up here that's almost at 11, right, for y, and then this one down here that's at like almost 1. So these 2 would be called outliers as well. So you've got 2 examples with outliers here, and that would be figure 3 and figure 4. So for letter A, it says choose the 2 data sets that have outliers, so that would be 3 and 4. Right, that's these 2, because you got your outlier right here for figure 3, and you've got 2 outliers in figure 4. And then in letter B, it says choose the data set that shows clustering, and we talked about that, and that would be figure 2. All right, see what ALEKS says about our answers. Seems to like them. Let's do one more really quick to make sure we've got this. All right, shown below are the scatter plots for 4 data sets. Exact same thing. Answer the questions that follow. Letter A wants us to find the ones that have outliers. So if you look at figure 1, again, this looks a lot like the one we just looked at, right? You've got these 2 points here that don't really fit. It's like one of these things is not like the other. So I think that's going to be figure 1. And if you look at 2, 3, and 4, they all seem to have some sort of grouping going on. So it's just figure 1. And then for letter B, it says choose the 2 data sets that show clustering. Well, the only 2 data sets that show that are figure 2 and figure 3. Figure 2 has 2 clusters, one at about x equals 2, one at x equals 9, and then figure 3 has 3 clusters, one at about x equals 2, one at x equals 6, and one at x equals 9. So that would be figures 2 and 3 for the win. And bang, we got it. Nice job, guys. I hope this helps you with identifying outliers and clusters.